Hello and good day to you and its Impact, another episode in the series. And today I have a special guest with us. She is a singer, songwriter. She is, she said, Jesus Glitter Rock daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother, and a child of the King. She has recently won the Dove Award for Children Album of the Year. Ready, set, go. And if you have children and you haven't been watching our songs and using our songs with your children, I don't know where you have been. I just want to welcome Yancy to.
Hey.
Hello, Yancy.
Hello, hello. It's so good to be with you guys today.
It's a pleasure to have you. And of course, I must say my daughter loves your music, and she made sure to tell you that she enjoys all of your music.
That's so sweet. I love that.
But Yancy, I'm here in the UK, you're in the US, and maybe a lot of people here might not have heard of Yancy. So tell us, who is Yancy?
Well, I'm all the things that you already said as far as the specifics of just what my life looks like. But I have been making music for the past 24 years, and that was kind of my childhood dream and goal as a kid. I knew from the time that I was single digits, I felt like God had put me on this earth to make music and to do that for him. And so everything in life just kind of always was pointing towards taking steps of making that happen and making that dream come true. And so been making music for a long time, always has been Christian music. I came back and forth to Nashville for years and just learned how to write songs and had some songs cut by other artists that were doing Christian music at the time, and then got more and more involved in leading worship. And then that kind of had some opportunities to dip my toe in the water doing some kids music things. And after doing that for a number of years, it just kind of became more and more obvious that God was, shining a light on the path of me doing music for kids and families. And so I decided to jump in wholeheartedly to do that since the start of 2008. So it's now been a while that I've just been focused on making music for kids and families. And I do that with a couple different types of projects. I have a series called Little Praise Party. Those songs are geared for younger age children. So simpler, repetitive, lots of action, simple vocabulary, lots of fun. And then I have another series that I do called Kid Men Worship, or some of the things that you might see that just say Yancy on them. And that I kind of gear up for older ages. So whether that looks like grade 5 or grade 6, kind of becomes my target elementary age with that music. And I like to say it pretty much sounds like normal music.
Yep.
But I'm just aware of the audience that I'm expecting to listen to it and expecting to use it, and then make some, choices specifically for them. But it's lots of fun. I get to do family concerts and lead worship at kid events in our summertime over here, and just lots and lots of fun. I like to make Jesus loud is what I say.
You say you're 24. You don't look like you have been singing for 24 years. Did you say?
I started young. I was a senior in high school when I started. So I was 17. So generally I'm older than people think I am. But I'm 41. So the years are stacking up. But
yeah. I remember I've been working with children. I've been working with children for over 20 years, but in church, running children group for the past 10 years. And remember coming across your music and seeing you with your guitar and looking much younger than that now. So I've seen you develop over the years.
For sure. It's been a journey.
Now, this is impact, and we're talking about the impact on lives by how people live. But I want to start out, how did you get into music?
Well, I really got into it. I remember the day my dad is a children's minister. And so I spent a lot of Saturdays as a kid hanging out with dad up at the church, setting up, getting everything ready, for Sunday morning. And I remember the day that there was a kids worship team practice that would happen. And one of the girls that, is normally on the team didn't show up for practice. And that kind of I guess, left a void or something on the microphone they had set up. And so I remember just kind of volunteering myself, saying like, I'll do it. I remember that happening. And then from that point forward, I just remember me singing, me taking whatever opportunity I could to get an accompaniment track and start learning a special song that then I, performed in our children's church for the offertory, sang a special song, got involved in kids choirs, like all of those things. It's just from that day forward, music just kind of was a thing. So, and it's so interesting because looking back on my life now, I'm starting to realize that it feels like all the adults in my life were very aware of, I believe, ultimately what God had created me to do. I think part of that was just like, I was so into music, and that was obviously something that I was so much like taking advantage of every opportunity I could to sing, whether that was at church or even, I remember the school I went to when I was like first, second, third grade. I know the music teacher at our school, I mean, for sure, by the time I was like in second and third grade, like she was doing certain things, helping to encourage me, and this obvious awareness that music was something that I was drawn to. And I believe it was something the Lord was calling me to. And so, when I look back and just reflect, like throughout all of my upbringing and years at church, I can think back to people that worked in our children's ministry, and I can think back to people that helped out with our youth group, and just conversations that we would have, that I realized how much those little, what probably were all seem very ordinary conversations that just were happening at church between a leader and a child. But I realized how all of those put together like so built my faith and encouraged me, because really it was loads and loads and loads of cheerleaders that I had that were encouraging me in this thing that God had called me to do. And so I'm now to that point where I can look back and reflect on it and just realize like what a gift that was.
Yeah.
And what a significant part that each of those people played in the process. So that's kind of a general thing. I've got two other people in particular that I can think of that really helped me out. So when I was 15 years old, my youth pastor at our church, I served on the worship team and all of that. We had been attending another concert at another church in our city. And while we were there, God just kind of spoke to my youth pastor, and he was like, you know what Yancy's dream is? What can you do to help her take a next step? Because at this point in my journey, it was all just me singing a special song.
Yeah.
That was it. Just whatever little offertory song that I could sing. And so I believe this was like springtime. We planned it for later in the year for August 16th, 1995, where I would do my first concert for my youth group, for my peers in our church. And so, I'm so thankful to my youth pastor for that, because it was just this like line in the sand to like take this much bigger step than anything that I had been doing. And it just helped me like actually share these little songs that I was writing in my bedroom that I was playing for no one, at that point, and learn how to talk between songs and just all the things that are kind of like part of a concert. And so I did that when I was 15. And I remember every year when that anniversary rolls around, because I remember what a gift that was of my youth pastor to listen to God's voice and to follow that prompting that he had from the Lord to help me take a step, because I realized like if he had not done that, then I would not have maybe gotten a bunch of things in place to start taking steps and start taking action. Like if he had not done that at 15, then I probably wouldn't have made that first album when I was 17. And so I realized that was super duper significant. As well, another ministry friend of my dad's. He was someone in the US that had a company called One Way Street. They did a whole lot with puppets, lots and lots of traveling and lots of things that had happened over the years. But besides my dad giving me opportunities to sing at church, I think Dale Von Sagan is his name, was probably the first third party, like person that let me get on stage and sing my songs at a special event, and for a group of people. And that happened repeatedly over the years, and, continued even once I had officially released an album and stuff. And Dale didn't just do that for me, but he did that for a lot of other people that are in ministry here in the US, that travel, that do events at churches, that they don't necessarily all do music, but some of them, juggle or do puppetry or do illusions or clowns or like all sorts of variety of things. But he really gave opportunity for a lot of people to have a chance to get on stage and perfect that art form that they were learning, at home, in their bedroom and their living room for their family, all that stuff, and really get out there and do that for other people. And he passed away a couple years ago, coming up on 2 years. And in particular, there was something that day as I was traveling home from his funeral, and there were so many other people there just like myself that day. It really hit me that the ripple effect of our obedience goes so much farther than we could ever imagine.
That's
because I realized, what Dale was doing in my life and in the life of all of these other people, and the fact that decades later, we're all out there doing our own thing, doing our own ministry, impacting people in our own ways. But if you look back, Dale was the first one to throw that stone into the lake, and create that hit in the water that then is still moving out, impacting other people, impacting lives. And so, obedience is something I've been passionate about and have a project, and we can talk more about that right now because I could be on this subject all day. The ripple effect of your obedience goes so much farther than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, that's a very powerful word there. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in your dad. You said was a children pastor, and I'm trying to think. My daughter is 9, and she has, been, I said 10 years. I think I started in children ministry because I was going around and wanted something for my child that when she goes to church, she's going to not feel bored. So she has ever since been doing things with me, running. I know she runs Bricks Kids with me. She's one of the hosts on Bricks Kids. How did that impact you, or how was that? How did you deal with having to be around your dad? Did you find times when you didn't want to, you want to give it up, or was it easy?
I think for the most part, it was easy. I remember one day in particular that I don't know, I think I was probably in middle school at the time, which maybe was like a contributor. There was this one day that I know I had an attitude about it, and I didn't like the fact that he was busy doing something with other kids at the church and not just me.
Yeah.
But when I think back on life, I really only remember that one day, and I'm going to probably say that I was a problem in that equation. But no, I mean, it was fun. I think trying to reflect back on my upbringing, I think my parents did a good job of making ministry be something that we as a family collectively did, that it wasn't just about like, oh, well, this is dad's job, dad's the one that works at the church. And so you have to do this because, he's got to be there doing this or whatever. I think, getting to be a part of ministry and do things. And like I said, help, this is from the time that I was pretty young, get up there and help put together visitor packs and straighten chairs and just a bunch of just busy work, but things that we could do. But it was a way that we spent time with dad, and we kind of ended up with the whole day. Like Saturday was our day that we hung out with dad. We would go to lunch, have a special lunch, special time with him. Maybe we went shopping and, got a new pair of jeans or a new pair of socks or, something when we were a teenager. But, Saturdays really just, it came down to be our day with him. And, part of how we spent that time was doing things to get ready to be a part of the ministry that was going to take place at church that weekend. But no, my parents did a great job of including us in what was happening. I think really, really making it feel like we were a part of the ministry that was taking place and making a difference, and not just like, we happened to live with the person that was doing all of that.
And did mom play a part in your development?
Yeah, well, I mean, she still does. She still travels with me majority of the time. So my mom, we started homeschooling when I was in 4th grade. So obviously she was a key factor in that, and all of our schooling. And, she was the person that, when I started traveling, she jokes and says that my dad told her something like, I need you to do this for 6 months or something, like go on the road with me, as I started traveling and doing concerts at other youth groups around the country. Yes, he told her a much shorter time frame that she had to go on the road with me, because now she's been doing it for 24 years. But on the flip side, like, she's a part of what I do, and what I have been able to do over the years would not have happened without her help. And as well, we're able to spend a lot of extra time together and quality time together, even now as adults, that, if she wasn't traveling with me and just, had life happening over here and I had life happening over here, it would be a lot less time together. So my parents impacted for sure, just in their words and their encouragement and the repetition. Both my parents said a lot of things over and over and over. Like my mom, she would quote these song lyrics from a song that she liked called Love God, Hate Sin. Every birthday card, every letter mailed to camp, like, to this day, like, she signs it, Love God, Hate Sin. Love mom. But it's one of those things, like, after hearing that multiple times throughout the year, every year for many, many decades now, like, you start to really take that to heart and believe it. And there were things I remember, my dad would just be like, hey, make this promise, do this, whatever. And kind of just go along with it as a kid. I don't know, you roll your eyes, just trying to make the moment, like, move on to the next thing. Like, can we just have the pizza right now? Like, whatever. And, but I remember when I was a teenager, just the repetition of how many times he had said that thing to me, like the day that some of that like started clicking, where it was like, ooh, I want that character in my life. Like, I want my life to represent that and to bear that fruit. And I realized if he had only told me those things like once or twice, wouldn't have happened. It's just like when you open the Bible, there's certain phrases that are in the Bible repeatedly, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. We're told so many times over, do not be afraid, be strong, be courageous. Like, there's certain things even in the Psalms that are repeated throughout the Psalms, or there's one Psalm in particular where, it says something and then it's like, the Lord is good and his mercy endures forever. And it says the next thing, and then it says the Lord is good and his mercy endures forever. Like, says it like 30 something times, I think, throughout that verse, like a whole bunch. And I realized, like, God knew that we would need to hear it over and over and over and over if we were going to actually take some of those things to heart and put them into action in our life. Because if it had only happened just once, if there was one scripture in the Bible that said, do not be afraid, we would have missed it, and so many of us wouldn't have heard it. But yet the repetition highlights to us the importance of putting that thing into action in our life. And I see the same thing in what my parents did with us. Just that repetition made a huge impact in shaping my faith and shaping who I am as a person.
It's interesting you say that, I've never looked at it like that, those repetition, and the impact. And I guess you have used that in your music to develop music. You talk about homeschooling. What was the influence behind you being homeschooling? Because that's something I know a lot of people struggle with and are debating at the moment here in the UK.
Yeah. So we started homeschooling. My parents did it at the time. Like there weren't a lot of homeschoolers here at all. So it was not a cool thing, a popular thing when my parents started doing it, but they really, number one, God started speaking to both of them about it. And they were kind of nervous to talk to the other spouse about it just because of how much they weren't impressed by the concept of homeschooling. It was like, okay, God, but you talk to him, you talk to her. And but God started like tugging on both their hearts about it. And for them, it was really just a way to spend a lot more time together. My dad was busy there, internet didn't exist at the time, just the hours of when he had to be at work. So, there were times Dad drove me to school in the morning, but if there was a function at church that evening or whatever, then I'm going to be in bed by the time he gets home. And so I only saw him for that one little window of the day. And so part of their motivation for it was really just to be able to put us on a more flexible schedule to be off when Dad was off and, be able to spend more time together. I homeschool my boys. So I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. They're both boys. And my 10-year-old, I've been homeschooling him the whole time. And, for me, it was about the flexibility with my travel schedule, was obviously a big motivation of it. But again, it's just the time together, the extra time together. And, it was fun. Like I'm the one that sat there and taught my son how to read. And he's a really good reader too. I will say, like, I'm proud when I'm having him read out loud these days, I'm like, yes, like you're doing a good job. But, I was the one that got to hang out and sit on the couch and help him learn how to do it. So I think the flexibility of it and just the extra time, life is busy and our life is still busy. But when I think about, okay, and trying to have one extra set of voices in there telling me where to be at what time and when, and taking up a bunch of hours of my day, like that would just be an extra layer to the busy and crazy. So it's enough just, working sports and various other activities and friends and all that into the mix. But, and I think the other plus is obviously you can keep what your kids are learning be something that's biblically based. And that's one of the other big wins is you just get to help shape their perspective and their view on the world and all of those things according to what we believe in scripture.
Are they musical?
Say that again.
Are they musical? Your boys, are they musical?
Not as much as I wish they were, but and mixed too. I've tried really hard not to like push it at all too, because I didn't want to just be like forcing it on them because I'm into music. My oldest boy really likes to DJ and like kind of like remix and stuff like that. So he's kind of into that. Rhythm is my youngest son, and he definitely is pretty dancey. Like he's to that point when the music's playing, like he's going to start feeling the beat. So I don't know. The verdict is still out. Rhythm may end up being a little bit more musical. But Sparrow is a very creative, imaginative person. But I'm just not sure if he got the music gene or not.
As you grew up with your dad and your mom, and the influence of your youth past and so forth, just kind of driving you. How do you do parenting based on how you were parent? What impact have your parenting, your parents having on you? Have you taken to in your own parenting style?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's elements that are similar and the same, and some areas maybe not as much. My parents were incredibly strict on the things that we watched and listened to when we were young. I'll be honest, I'm not as strict as they were. I think some of that is just the difference in technology.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was going to say.
what
Technology
you
have
can
changed.
access
Yeah.
is as a big factor for that. But I think mixed with that, just try to be balanced. And I think one of the things my parents did is we talked about everything, and they just highlighted things as you were living your life. Like for our family, it wasn't so much that we like sat down and had family devotion at a specific day or time. Like my parents just worked in family devotion stuff into every day throughout all the different conversations that happened. You know, they would just kind of A/B, whether it was a person you experienced, whether it was a situation that happened, they would just highlight maybe what took place and, you know, what the Bible says about that, or, you know, maybe what a better way to react would have been, or the type of person that you want to look for in a spouse, you know, versus characters you might have seen in someone that day that it's like, you don't want to date somebody like that, you know, like it was just that kind of stuff was just worked into like every day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of those things for sure that I've carried through. You know, partly just because I do have the boys at home, homeschooling them, I am able to be a little bit more diligent of having a Bible time and kind of a devotion time with them at some point in our day throughout the week. But I just try to work stuff into the conversation. So whether it's a song lyric of something you heard on the radio that's good or bad, or, you know, a topic of conversation or something you saw in a show or a movie or something that's going on with a friend or whatever it is, just kind of work faith into all of those conversations and let that be a part of our just rhythm of who we are as people and as a family.
How do you write music to have such an impact? I know you talk a bit about repetition, but what is the process you go through to make sure, you know, I'm writing for these younger ones or for these, to make sure it has an impact? Because I can see it on my daughter when she loves those songs and the creation of that. But how do you do that?
Well, I think vocabulary is a big factor, especially if we're talking about the music geared for younger kids. That is a very key ingredient, is making sure that I'm using words that they're going to understand and make sense to them, and figuring out action words that tie into what the subject of that song is, or whatever, that we can, you know, help them put action into the songs with and stuff. For me, for the most part, when I'm writing kids songs, I kind of start with a general idea of like, I want to have a song about obedience, or I want to have a song about, you know, to help people celebrate Easter or something. So I normally start with a pretty specific lyrical direction. And then depending on, you know, what that song is, what the use of it is, you know, that's going to dictate like, okay, it's got to be a fast song, or it's got to have action to it, or it's got to be simple, it's got to have a sing-along type moment to happen in it. I think some of those variables then happen just kind of knowing like how I think churches are going to utilize the song, or how are, you know, kids and their parents going to benefit from this. So that's generally how I have started with my kids' music. I wouldn't say that I wrote music for adults and just kind of like normal Christian. I didn't take that same approach, but with the kids, that's a big factor, is I kind of start knowing like, I want a song about this specific thing. And then just kind of start working on a song idea, singing stuff while I'm driving, you know, like sometimes recording a little voice memo thing into my phone. If I get a little single idea, figure out like, oh, this would be a fun way to break down that subject to help them understand. You know, I think Stop and Go is maybe an example of that. Or my song Super Wonderful, I wrote that. Really, my son Sparrow, my oldest son, he's a huge superhero fan. loved to dress up in superhero costumes all day long. That was his thing. And so I, was inspired to write Super Wonderful just from the standpoint of, all right, I'm a song about superheroes, a
So
song that,
he impacted you in terms of
yeah,
writing.
for sure. Like I would have not written that song if I had not had my son, for sure. It just kind of changed my view and my perspective. And so that was kind of the idea and the goal with that is like, how do I write a superhero God song, So, and then like, there's a song I released this year called Even When, and it was a little bit of a different scenario. Like I was attending this event and there was a guy telling a story. The man telling the story obviously is someone that came from a family that had money because they were sponsoring the event that I was at. So, their foundation had put on this event. But he was telling the story just that his family had been going through some hard stuff and just kind of a season of some hard things. And his daughter went to a Christian private school. And one day as they're navigating this challenging season, she came home from school and she said something to her dad. She just was like, all the songs that we sing in chapel are about being happy. How do I go to God with my pain? Mm-hmm. And I was like, ding, 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 like as I was sitting there, like immediately like flipped over in my notebook and just started writing down, some of the lyrics and concepts and stuff that made it into that song, Even When, because I'm like, how fair is that? So often, whether it's even at a Christian school or at a summer camp or Sunday morning, in our churches or whatever, like, yes. And there's a time and place for those songs that are fun and energetic and a great time, just like what Super Wonderful is. But, and what we're doing, even as a parent, and the things that you have on your playlist or just the conversations you have with your kids, how are you helping them create a rhythm and a reflex to run to God in everything that they're going through? I'm a huge fan of David in the Bible. Yeah. And when you really look at David's life, I think that's one of the difference makers and how he lived his life was David was a worshiper, period. It wasn't a conditional thing. There was no and, if, but, why, how, like about it. Like David was a worshiper and he learned to worship God when he was on the mountaintop, and he worshiped God even when he was in the valley. And I think that, some of those famous Psalms that you've heard before about God being our refuge and our strength, or a shelter and a hiding place. Like, I don't believe that those are all just stories and things that he wrote about, like after he had experienced those things. I think probably some of those things is him crying out and calling out in the moment, like, God, I need a hiding place right now. Like, I need you, to take me under the shelter of your wing. And I just think there's a whole lot we can learn from David, from that example of just learning how to go to God when we're happy and everything's awesome and it's our birthday, and equally go to God when we receive some news that's very disappointing, or some news about a family member that upsets us, or when something bad happens to a friend that hurts us, like whatever that might look like. If we learn to drop to our knees or open up our mouth, close our eyes, lift our hands, and just sing about how we've seen God be faithful and declare the things about who God is and what his character is, it shifts the atmosphere. It shifts our attitude. And I believe it opens up opportunities for God to move in amazing ways in our lives. And so that's a passion of mine for sure.
So that's about being real with your Christian life, so that your children and you can see that as you go. So it's not making it as if everything is okay, but through the pain and all, just sharing that with them so that they can experience and see that the miracle that God has done.
For sure. And
there was
even just with my son, a couple months back, there was a day that he had commented. He was like, "Hey, I don't want to forget this, so I'm going to tell you now. But last night when I was going to sleep, I felt like God had told me to do, this particular thing, and I want you to help me, take action to it and not forget." And it was so fun that day because it was a pretty big deal and a pretty amazing thing and a sacrifice that my son was going to make to give God his obedience of that. But it was so cool to get in the car that day. And I think we were like headed out of town actually. And my husband was with me, and we just started telling story after story after story after story from our life, both my husband and I, of the times where we knew that God had asked us to do something specific and took action to it and stepped out in faith and obedience. And then the ways that we saw God, take care of us and bless us in return for that. It was so cool just to be able to share those testimonies to encourage our sons. In that moment, it wasn't necessarily his obedience. He was willing to give the obedience, but we just wanted to encourage him to believe in faith that like, okay, if God asked you to do this, then like, it's all going to be okay, because I guarantee you're going to see the return on what it is that he's asking you to lay down and to sacrifice in this moment. And so I think sharing those testimonies of the things that God has done for you, the ways that he's changed you, the ways that he's blessed you, the way that, the things that he's done in your life, that it's like, that you didn't do that. You did not lift a finger and make that happen. That was truly just one of the blessings of God, the miracles of God in your life. Share that with your kids and your family, your friends, even, just to motivate them and encourage their faith as well.
I mean, you have, shared so much about the impact of your father, your teachers, and the youth ministry, and now you have a platform that you are impacting others. How awesome a job is that, and how do you use that opportunity to make sure you are, giving back as much as you got?
Yeah. Well, I'm so blessed and thankful just for the people that, listen to my music. We did a count a couple months ago, 167 countries pressed play on Yancy music this year, which is really amazing to think about. Just those people around the world that I get to be a part of, through a song recording or through a video. Like, that's amazing and humbling. And so I love just the ways that I get to partner with families and with churches and schools and camps and stuff that utilize my music. That is really, really cool. I love to make Jesus loud. I'm passionate about helping kids learn how to worship God, because I truly believe, God created us to be worshipers. And so one of the things that we should be doing as a Christ follower is having an expression of worship in our life. Otherwise, we're not doing the thing that he created us and made us to do. And so I do a whole lot just in writing a curriculum that churches can teach, resources. I just wrote a book that released recently called Sweet Sound, The Power of Discipling Kids in Worship. And I just want to motivate and encourage, adult leaders and teachers and whoever has influence over, children's and student ministry, just that the significant part that a time of worship can play in the life of Christ followers, and helping them choose to be more intentional and strategic about what it is they're doing, so that they can put that rhythm and that reflex of worshiping in those that they're leading. So whether they're 6 years old or they're 10 years old or they're 16 years old, like putting that in them so that when they are 40, like when they're in college and university, like, whatever stage and season of life, that they know that pathway, that they can experience God's presence, that they can experience the hiding place that I believe we do experience when we draw close to God through the thing of worship. And so that's probably my biggest passion at this point on the journey, is just helping expand that idea and vision for people, and then give them some resources and tools to help make that, be tangible in the lives that they get to impact, for sure.
So in 167 countries, what stories have you been told or experience have you heard of that have really touched you based on your work?
Oh man. I mean, obviously the times that I get a photo or a video of a group of kids in another country, it's always moving, because, you know, it's so easy in your ordinary day. You know, like I'm sitting here in the Nashville, Tennessee area, I'm looking out in my backyard at my kids' swing set, you know, so some days feel really ordinary and just, you know, kind of like, well, I'm going to go to the grocery store, you know, like, you know, doesn't feel like world changing kind of stuff. Sometimes that happens. So seeing those pictures and those videos are some moments that it just kind of clicks and you realize like, oh my goodness, you know, like this is happening in Romania or India or, you know, like whatever place. That's super cool. I think one of the stories that always sticks out to me, I remember a mom coming up to me at a conference. This has been quite a few years back. So, I mean, geez, this was probably at least like 8 years ago. But this mom came up to me. She was telling me about her kids. I feel like she had twins. It might have only been one child, but I feel like it was twins. And the children had some, you know, like learning disabilities where they did not communicate. But they listened to my music. In particular, I have a song called Hosanna Rock. And she showed me this video where the child was singing along and singing Hosanna, ho, ho, Hosanna. And this mom was standing in front of me with tears in her eyes, because pretty much that's basically the only word she's ever heard her child say. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just to think about that from a physical standpoint. But then, you know, just the significance of what that word means as well. You know, it's a way that we're saying, save us, you know? And that's pretty moving and special when you just kind of realize in various people's stories and the life that they're living and just situations they're going through, to be such a significant and special part of, you know, your day to day. I always say on social media often, but being the soundtrack to your days is one of my life's greatest honors and joys. And that is true. Just knowing that you guys push play on the music and you dance and you sing and you worship God and you, I hope, have conversations about some of the stuff that's in the message of the songs, like all of those things. That's just the greatest gift.
Now, your songs really do teach. I mean, just your songs alone, the message is in there. You don't have to really say much. The children can understand it. And what I find in the past 10 years working with children is that whenever you do things for children, the adults are the ones who sometimes are even more engaging in what you do, because I personally believe that if you make the message of God and hope and love as simple for a child to understand, then the whole world can understand that. So yeah, I enjoy that with your music.
The Bible, you know, the Bible doesn't change for how old the person is. Mm-hmm. The Bible's the Bible. God's word is true, no matter if we're talking about a 3-year-old or a 30-year-old. You know, we need that same truth from God's word in our lives. The difference, and I think the difference for me and the songs that I write, is I'm just chopping that truth down into a smaller bite-sized piece for the age of whoever it is that I'm intending to write the song for. But the truth that's in that song applies whether we're 3 or 13 or 30 or, you know, 80. Like, God's word is always going to be true, but just making that tangible and accessible for young ones to grab hold of it and love it and want to, you know, have it repeatedly on their lips is my challenge, you know, and the work that I put in, but it's a lot of fun too.
I mean, you have recently been awarded the Dove Award for Children's Album of the Year. I mean, when I read that, I was like, really? First one? First,
I know.
the first one, but you seem to me the person who, is not the, it's just nice to be awarded, but your music is what drives you and the lives you touch. How much of an impact have the award have on you, or what difference does it make for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point in my journey, I definitely was not doing anything that I was doing trying to get a Dove Award.
Yeah.
That was obviously that would have been a dream of mine as a teenager. And when I first was starting, like I studied all things pertaining to CCM. So it definitely is something that I would have dreamed of, but just had removed from being part of the equation at this part of the journey. So when I got nominated last summer, that was very moving. Because I just started getting text messages from a bunch of different friends over the years, that just had such nice, positive things to say. And so it was just kind of one of those moments where you're like, oh my goodness, like people think I'm good at what I do, just kind of like some of those, like, not that I mean, I knew I was good at what I do, but sometimes it's just nice when you're like hearing people
appreciate it. Yeah.
And people that journeyed with you through different, parts of life, and peers, and, people I used to write with, and various stuff. But I will tell you, so I've spent my whole life, like, we have, a big news show over here, the Today Show on NBC or whatever, a big morning news program. And, so I've seen a gazillion celebrities over the years be interviewed on that. And so whether they're talking about the Oscars or the Emmys or, like whatever thing, and you see their interviews and they're just always like, it's just such an honor to be nominated. And truth be told, Craig, I have spent my whole life rolling my eyes, like, whatever, that is hogwash. You want to win. Like, like just kind of one of those, you're being overly modest and lying through your teeth right now that it's an honor to be nominated. So true confession of my attitude and judgment for years. But in that moment, the day I got nominated, and just kind of knowing like, okay, it's an uphill battle. It'd be a true miracle if I can win this, just because, there's a lot of factors about how the voting works, and who it is that's getting to vote, and, major record company players and stuff that is able to cast more votes, and, has a ton of employees voting, all these factors. So I knew, from the get-go, like, this also may be the only piece in this story for me is this nomination. But that day I realized, I'm like, okay, no matter what happens, it really is such an honor to be nominated. So I was kind of like true confession and repent moment as well. Like, okay, all of these people that I completely have called you a liar.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you're right. It really is an honor to be nominated. But then winning, fast forward a few months, winning, I think I had mentally prepared myself that I wouldn't win. So when I won, my stuff is, like an earlier award thing. So like we didn't get to do acceptance speeches and all that kind of stuff. Actually, it was a video playing on the screen in the auditorium, and I just stayed sitting in my chair. And, my husband was like, "You won." But I think I just was in shock. I had a friend that had been my manager for years come over, and he was just like, "You're in shock right now. Like, you're not acting right." Like, yes. But I think it's been really cool. And in particular, I won for this project called Ready, Set, Go.
Right.
And if you've followed me on social media at all, like, literally, we are now like 3 years into this like greater Ready, Set, Go story where and so I can share a little bit about that if we have time, but I will just say, like, me winning the Dove in particular for this project that just has so much attached to it is literally like the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae. It literally is like God, leaning over in heaven and throwing confetti down upon me to be like, you did the thing that I told you to do.
And now is your reward.
In the process, like, a real childhood dream of mine to win a Dove Award happened, but like that wasn't my reason or my motivation at all.
Right.
But for Ready, Set, Go to be the project that I won a Dove Award for is really, really special.
Now we almost at an end, and we're speaking with Yancy. Just want to say, what is next for Yancy?
Well, I mentioned that I just released this book, have a lot more to come with that and just more things pertaining to that release in the new year. So that's a big point of focus. I've got a new version of Ready, Set, Go, the song, that will be coming out probably end of January, and then some other music things. And I've got more books that I want to write too. So hoping my to-do list can calm down so I can settle back into that writing mode. So that's kind of my goal.
And with the pandemic and most of the things have been locked down, do you tour, or do you have planned tour coming up?
Yeah, so I have been able to travel. Last year I traveled a lot less. I think I got to do like 7 live events in that 9-month span of 2020. This year I got to travel a lot over summer. That felt very, very normal. This school year has been a little bit calmer. I've just gotten to do quite a few Christmas concerts, and that was really fun. Got a lot more things lined up for next summer. So it's like a mixture. And it's like keeps going in these little pockets, but I am still getting to get out there and do family concerts and travel, which I'm grateful for. It's maybe just still a little bit less than it was,
Have you been to the UK?
I have not. I have flown through London. That's as close to London. And crazy story, like back in probably 1996, kind of a middle part of my story, I almost joined this music group. And they had a deal with a record company over in the UK, and we were supposed to go to London. I had my plane ticket bought and everything, got my first passport for this trip. And then when all was said and done, I knew I wasn't supposed to join that music group. And so I told them I wasn't going to do it before we went on the trip. And so I had to cancel my trip to London. And so I still have only ever been inside the London airport. Yeah. So God still owes me a trip to London.
Well, I'm sure you'll be here one of these days, and I would love to have you here to do some work with.
That would be so fun. I've gotten to go to Sweden and Romania and Africa and Australia, Canada, somewhere else that I'm forgetting, but.
Well, London will be, once we have settled down with this pandemic, I'm sure we'll have something we can do together.
I would love it.
You have talked about your books and your website. Tell the audience where they can get a hold of your website and your music.
Yeah, you can go to yancyministries.com, or if it's easier for you to remember, yancynotnancy.com. On social media, my Facebook page, my Twitter, my Instagram, my YouTube channel, all of that is Yancy, not Nancy, just spelled as one word. So you can find me, follow me along all those places. Anywhere that you listen to music, whatever music platform, you can find my music there. So just type in Yancy, Yancy. If you have younger kids, maybe type in Little Praise Party as well. Find that music that pertains to them. But you can listen to my music on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, YouTube, all of those places, and would love for y'all to tune in, take part in what I do, and make Jesus loud with me in process.
And if you do VBS, you might have been, depends on the VBS packs you use, you would have had some of Nancy's songs in those too. So do check out her music. Really good for children and adults alike, but for the little ones, it's really engaging, entertaining, and the message is always clear. So you want to check those out. Before we go on, so just a bit on a lighter note, I've always known that you have a style, a particular style, colors and glitters, and the hat and is there any story behind that?
Not really. Not too big of a story. Yeah, it's just kind of is just who I am. polka dot stripes, stars, checkerboard patterns are kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Bright colors. I mean, color is happy. So you're automatically more happy and more fun wearing bright colors than if you're just in all black. So I always joke, I'm like, all black was good for Johnny Cash. He was the man in black, and it's slimming and all of those things, but it's not the happiest color. So
yeah.
I infuse color and pattern, and it's just kind of part of my personality and part of my fun vibe.
So what as a singer and artist, what music do you love to listen to when you're not listening to your own music? Or do you listen to your own music?
I mean, I sometimes, I have to listen to my own music when I'm working on it, especially when you're releasing new stuff. It's like you listen to it more times than you even want to. In those early creation stages of things, just by the time you're making a video and you're proofing this and getting all of this stuff ready. And, but yeah, I mean, probably lots of worship music is, and or something that I'm putting on that from like Orange Kids music, some other great kids music that's out there for kids, if I'm being intentional about something that I want my boys to check out and listen to. So probably some of those things. I love Brandon Lake, and I love Cody Carnes. Those are a couple of my favorite worship music guys. So
what's your do you like watching movies? Last movie you watched?
Yes and no. Last movie I watched it's Christmas time. My boys have been wanting to watch Jingle All the Way. It's like an old Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movie. That was the last movie I watched, but I did get to go to our theater here last weekend and see the new Spider-Man movie. So that was fun.
And in terms of food, what type of food do you like to cook and eat?
Ooh, probably Mexican food is my ultimate favorite. I do love pizza as well, though. And I love Brussels sprouts. But probably Mexican food. If I only could pick one, tacos.
And your favorite book to read?
Oh my goodness.
Or the last book you read?
The last book I just read is a book called Total Forgiveness by R.T. Kendall. I'd heard him speak a couple years ago, and this is kind of the book version of what I'd heard him speak about, but just kind of, I'd seen a lot about it, and it was really, really good. It was very good. And I'm trying to think, I do read a lot of books. I'm trying to think back in time of what all I've read this year. There's another book I read this year called Spiritual Roots of Disease. That was really, really good. I'm trying to think if I have it in here. Oh, Henry Wright. I know I was thinking of the wrong last name, but Dr. Henry Wright. That was a very good book as well. So a friend of mine had read it, and she texted me and she was like, I wish I could buy this for everyone I know. And once I read it, I then immediately knew like why she had said that, because I was making my own list of, I'm going to buy this for this person and this person. So that was good stuff.
Okay, as we come to an end here, Yancy, and I really appreciate your time and sharing us what for people out there. The main focus of this program is to let people realize that they are impacting lives no matter what they do.
For sure.
What would your last message be to such a person who's listening to us? So.
Yeah, well, I want to remind you the ripple effect of your obedience goes so much farther than you could ever imagine. What you do matters and makes a difference. And it might feel like it's something very simple and ordinary. And you're like, I just was smiling at the person, or I just was, doing something for a neighbor down the street, or, like it might not feel that special. But one of the things about the Ready, Set, Go project for me that really inspired it was Noah's obedience building the ark. I'd gone to this place we have here in the US called Ark Encounter. They built a life-size replica of Noah's Ark. And so standing in front of that, a story I had always heard, but seeing it with my own eyes and just how big it was, I realized, whoa, Noah was convinced he had heard from God, and he picked up a hammer and he got some wood and he took action to it and he started building this ark. And there were people that were making fun of him, thinking he was crazy, no doubt. You know, like you and I probably would have been guilty of the same thing if we saw this project happening in real life down the street from where we live, you know? And so the big thing though, I just realized, I'm like, we're all here because Noah obeyed, you know? And when I think about my youth pastor having me do that first concert, you know, like when I think about my friend that I called Uncle Dale giving me opportunities to sing, I realized like if they had not done those things, like I would have not taken the steps in my life to be at the point that I was, to be able to make music and to impact other people through that. And I just realized that, you know, whether it's through a song that I write or whether it's through a gift that I give or kindness that I extend, like when I'm doing the things that I know God has told me to do, it's not just about me and it's not just me being affected, but others are affected in that exchange. And so the world needs you. The world needs who God created you to be. God needs your obedience, your yes, to take action and start walking out the steps of faith that He has called you to in your life. And that's the heart and the message of Ready, Set, Go. Y'all pull it up, check out the song, listen to it. Listen to the Bible characters that I sing about in the bridge of the song, and just know that we oftentimes talk about finishing well. And, you know, that scripture in the New Testament, I've run my race towards the prize, you know, like we talk about finishing well, and that's important. And we do need to finish well. But I also realize there's a lot of Christians in this world, people that know Jesus, you know, that have a relationship, that have called on His name and believe in Him, but they aren't taking and putting into action some of those things that God is asking them to do in their life. And so you can't finish a race that you've never actually even stepped out and begun. And so that's my challenge with the whole project and song of Ready, Set, Go, is the ripple effect of your obedience goes farther than you could ever imagine. So ready, set, go do it.
I mean, I've done so many of these interviews in the past 2 months, and, you know, there's always something that strikes me personally. And, you know, as you speak just now, I just realized I'm doing this project and I don't know where it is going from. I've reached out to you, you have responded, and I've reached out to a number of people, and it's just being obedient. And I know there's something about this that somebody needs to hear, but you know, wherever it goes, it will go. So you know, I've been blessed by, you know, speaking to you, and, you know, I really appreciate your time and being with me.
You bet. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
There you go. We have Yancy. And remember, lives live, influence others. So live life to the best. We want to thank you for joining us for this episode, and join us next time when we have another guest to share the impact of life. Until then, bye. Please do like, share, and comment, and let us know what you think about this program.